Sandra.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen first of all. Okay. Can you see my screen yet or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Brilliant. So I'm going to be talking about my case study design that I'm using for my research study. I'm currently studying a PhD, and I've just submitted my ethics 4, which is under review at the moment. So hopefully I'll be able to start to collect data in the near future, hopefully February, March. I'm sort of looking at doing that. But I just thought it'd just be nice to talk to you about the case study design that I'm using, and then just talk to you a little bit about what I'm actually doing as well in my studies. Okay, so the first couple of slides is just going to give you a little bit of an overview of the title and the aims of the study, and also, you know, the context for the study as well. Then I'm going to focus the presentation will be around the case study design, which I'm going to be using as an approach to collect data. Okay, so methodology. So I'm using a qualitative approach to this study. The nature of this study is to capture the experiences of those involved in administration and management of social work placements. Many of you will know that I have involvement in overseeing placements here at the university. So I'm using this approach because I feel that it's the most appropriate means of actually gaining experiential data from participants. And so the methods that I'm using will actually provide a description of the experiences. But I do recognise that as a researcher, there is that reliance on actually accepting what people say and taking that as truth. And sometimes people can see this as bringing the research into question. But I'm hoping that through this research that people that are going to be participating will be open and honest in terms of what they're sharing, and hopefully not withhold information, which is always a possibility when it comes to this form of research. Okay, so the case study design is focused on a region, so it's going to be focused on the West Midlands. Individuals involved in developing social work placements in higher education and local authority, meaning that the people that I'll be sort of recruiting as participants would be like placement coordinators or people that are involved, that are actually involvement in actually developing placements, administering and managing placements. So you can also note that it's not about the students per se. So I won't be interviewing students directly. I won't be interviewing placement providers in terms of the actual placement supervisors. I won't be interviewing those people. It would be mainly people from higher education or local authorities who have that role in actually coordinating placements. But just to say that within different organisations, they may have different titles. For example, here at the University of Wolverhampton, we call them practice learning coordinators. At the local authority, they may just call them placement coordinators. In another HEI, they may have a different term, or it could be a senior lecturer with an additional title to their, you know, to the work that they're doing. So that's something else that I would need to find out to ensure that I'm recruiting the right people. Also, I'll be conducting semi-structured interviews, which will mean that I'll be interviewing individuals on a one-to-one. I'll be using open-ended questions, because the point of me using this sort of approach really is to give people the opportunity to talk about their experiences. And I want that to be as natural and as raw as it can be. And also, I'll be also looking at the policy and documents from organisations, mainly policies and documents that are already in the public domain. However, there are also artifacts as well that people may use, meaning that there may be documents that organisations have developed or designed themselves to use to help them with that process of the administrating part or the management of the placements. So that's what I'm going to be sort of, you know, looking at and asking for in terms of my contact with people. The type of case study is more an exploratory type of a case study. That's the type of study I'll be doing. Even though there are three types of case studies that you could do in terms of, there's an author of the name of Yin who talks about there are like three types of case studies. There's the exploratory, there's the explanatory, and there's also the descriptive as well. But I think what I'm actually going to be doing will lend itself more to exploratory, because what I want to do is explore the experiences. I want to develop an understanding of the experiences of individuals that are involved in developing, administrating and managing social work placement. And also the explanatory, because I also want to, in understanding, be able to explain or provide an explanation of what's actually going on. So that's my key focus there, really. Okay, in terms of data collection, as I mentioned before, it'll be a semi-structured interview. And I think through this process of collecting the data, I understand the importance of being objective. And I think because I've been working in placements for a long time, might have my own thoughts and my own understanding, but it's being able to reserve my thoughts and, you know, analysis until the end, so that I can, you know, just focus on, like I said, the raw data that's been collected, so that I can draw out what the key themes are, so I can draw out what's actually been said and sort of explore that. Also, I'm looking to record and transcribe, which means I'm looking to do the interviews on Teams, where I'm able to, you know, access transcriptions, and then, you know, during that process, hopefully be able to clean the data in terms of, because sometimes when you have the transcription on, in terms of interviewing over Teams, there may be words that come out that aren't quite right. So you might have to just, you know, clean those kind of words out of it, or, you know, put the correct word in. And what I'm intending to do because of that is just to ensure that the participant who took part in that interview also have access to that, so they can have a look at it, so they can see I'm not actually interfering with the content of what they've said. Artifacts and documents I've mentioned already. So, and just to, in addition, just to say, these artifacts and documents are things like the practice learning handbooks that we might have, the student profiles, the POPL documents. There are a number of documents that we use as part of this this process, if you like. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to gather all the documents and artifacts in terms of documents that people design for the purpose of the administrative process of placements, so that I can have a look at that and see what people are doing across the board. Okay, this is a slide I added recently because going through ethics, it just got me questioning a little bit more about interviewing people that you know. And I think sometimes we can take it for granted that, you know, if we're interviewing people, everything's going to be fine, you know, there won't be an issue, but quite the contrary. And so I just want to read this particular quote, and it says, researchers conducting research that involve participants who have a pre-existing relationship need to be aware of potential conflict and to proactively manage issues of trust through reflectivity and reciprocity. Sorry, I can't pronounce that word very well. And so that the role conflict is minimized. And that's important, really. So I, as a researcher, we need to be reflective of myself and how what I'm going to do is going to impact on others. And I also need to be mindful of that, because I have already have relationships with, in terms of working relationships with people who may be a part of this study, not just here at the university, but being a part of the West Midlands Teaching Partnership. I already have those contacts and people already know me, but they know me in the capacity of my job role. But I need to reassure them that when I'm meeting with them, that I'm there in the capacity of a researcher. And, you know, I would have a responsibility as well to ensure that I'm presenting myself in a professional manner, because reflectivity is really important, because, you know, depending on how you actually impact others can affect the relationships you have going forward. So it is important to make sure that you don't cause damage, in terms of reputation to yourself or to the university. So that's something that I really need to think about. So I just thought I'd put that in as a slide, because it just reminded me of a need to be conscious, really, about my role as a researcher. Ethical considerations. I've actually put there is no potential risk in terms of participants, or for me as a researcher, or no potential ethical dilemmas are actually envisaged. So I'm hoping that will still be the case. But however, due to the nature of the research, I don't believe there will be any sort of risks there. However, maybe, I need to think about the emotional impact, in terms of the content of the interview, when we're having a discussion. I don't know how individuals are going to react, if they're going to become emotional through talking about their experience. I don't know that. So it's going to be important for me before the interviews take place to ensure that I have that conversation with participants, so I can speak to them about what support they would have once they leave the interview, just to ensure that they've got the support that they need, if they should need that. And again, as I said, in terms of ethical dilemmas, I don't think there will be an issue there. If participants feel there is an issue or there is a problem, within the documents or the information that I provide to them before the actual research is conducted, it will have people who they can contact if they want to raise any issues or concerns that they may have. Okay, so in terms of analysing my data, I will be looking to use a thematic analysis and document analysis. So, so in terms of looking at the themes that are arising out of the transcripts of the participants' interview, so I'll be looking at those in details in order to build a picture of what's happening and what people are experiencing. So that's important for me, really, because it's about trying to understand that and to have an understanding of what is actually going on for people, and how individuals actually interpret their experiences. And document analysis, again, sort of looking at the documents across the HEIs and the local authority providers, and looking at what the key things that they're saying about social work placements and the key things that need to be addressed or in place or needs to be done. So some of those themes as well I'll be pulling out there. Okay, so you've all been wondering what on earth has she been talking about? What is this research about? Okay, so the title of my study is a study on the administration and management of social work placements in the West Midlands and a theoretical contribution to sense making, which is another aspect of my study. So this study will seek to explain what are the expectations of higher education institutes of those involved in social work placements. So each higher education will have directives that they follow in terms of what they need to do in terms of placements and the expectations there. Also, what is the rationale and meaning given by the relevant higher education institute staff about the complexities developing and providing social work placements. You know, so it's really, and that's where the core of the research is really, because I'm trying to understand that, trying to help everybody else understand that as well. What is the role of local authorities as partners in providing social work placements? And I just thought it would be important to include local authorities because they are a part of the process. And also our independent providers are also a part of the process. But for the purposes of this study, I'll be actually just focusing on the higher education and local authorities and the relationship that we have there. Also to identify the skills, the knowledge and experience required to administer and manage placement. I'm hoping that I'll draw out some of these things by, you know, finding out from participants what skills they feel that they have, the knowledge and experience that they have that enables them to actually do their job. So I'm hoping to draw that out as well. And also the contributions, as I mentioned earlier, to sense making, and that's really about making sense of what people are saying. So in terms of those factors, it's just exploring those really and trying to get an understanding. I think that's what it's about, having an understanding of these things and also understand what actually contributes to people's experiences and what impact you know, their role, in terms of their role and social work placements, because ultimately what it is said that the role of the coordinators or people that are involved in the administration and management of social work placements, that kind of translate in the placement provision and how that placement eventually then is going to be managed. So we do need to think about that. And I think as well, it would also help me to understand my role more. When I was covering for this role in terms of a placement coordinator, and then moving into head of social work and social care partnerships, you know, it just gave me more of an interest because I just wanted to understand a little bit more about how placements are developed, because I haven't experienced it. It was like a minefield, really. And if you're not involved in it, then you may not understand it fully. So it's just bringing that to the forefront, really. And I just wanted to know what the experiences of colleagues were in other organisations around this. And so I thought it would make a really good, interesting study just because of that. Okay, nearly finished, I think. Okay, so the context for the study. Little is known about how colleagues actually enact and adhere to the Social Work England requirements. Okay, so I've put that because Social Work England provide a great deal of guidance and information about students on placement, what a placement environment should look like, and they've got all of that, but there's nothing really about how, you know, colleagues in higher education actually administer this and make this happen. There's far less information about that. How social work placements are administered and managed, and it is through the experiences of individuals involved in social work placements that we learn and we make sense of the challenges and of managing and sustaining social work placement, and this will contribute to knowledge as well. There's lots of written work, there's lots of research out there about social work students in placement, about practice supervisors' experiences on placement, but there's nothing really around how HI staff manage all of this, or the process of developing, organising, administering, managing all of that in order for the placements to happen. There's nothing that I could find that was out there. So I think it would make a really good research in that sense too. This study will contribute to knowledge, providing evaluation of the narratives and actions experienced by HI staff, local authorities in the administration management of management of process social work placements. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's the end of my presentation. Do you have any questions?
I do. I can't find the hand. Oh,
sorry. I
was on the hand, and you have to go on. So you go first.
Yeah. Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing. Okay.
Yeah, I can stay for just a couple more minutes, but yeah, Sandra, I thought you did a really good job of doing the whole overview of your research project, you know, from start to finish. I thought the methodology was good. You know, one question I had for you is when, you know, the specifics for how you're going to do the qualitative analysis. Are you going to use a software program, or you know, Lincoln and Guba, they've got strategies to find, or grounded theory?
Oh, I'm bored here. My thinking, I was going to do it manually. So in terms of the transcripts that I can get from teams, I was going to sort of print those off and highlight the key themes that were coming out of the actual interviews. So I'll be kind of lining them up and kind of looking across.
I'm going to give you one suggestion, and then I'm going to leave.
If it makes it easier for me, I'll welcome it.
This is a software program that will look just like, you know, how we do, we look for plagiarism in students. Well, this software program kind of does the same thing. It's really nice. It's got another name, but I only remember its old name. Its name is Nudist.
All right.
N-U-D-D-I-S-T. I don't think it's that expensive, and probably Elaine could, you know, cop up some money for it. But it's really cool because everything needs to be, you know, you transcribe it, and then it goes in and it looks for themes and patterns. And I mean, it does in, you know, a minute which would take days to do. And the other nice thing about this, especially when you go to publish it, is then your bias for themes is out. You're letting the software program look for it rather than your, you know, so you've got sort of a validated approach for doing that. And I know there's other software programs that do the same thing other than Nudist, but you know, Nudist is really handy. So
yeah, have you got a link or anything that I could look at?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'll get a link for you for that software program. So and on that note, I'm going to go terrorize students with research methods.
Okay, thank you, Vaughan. Really appreciate your comment. Thank you.
Christina, you are next.
Thank you, Sandra. That was great. And I know that we've talked a lot of times about, oh, we need to talk about our research, but then it's always very difficult. So kind of like having a more in-depth idea of what you're trying to do is great. So I have questions, and I don't know whether it's a suggestion it might be that it's something that you already seen. So my question was in regards your position. So you are professionally involved in the area. I'm saying this because as a community development worker doing research on community development, I find it very difficult to disassociate the knowledge that I already have as a practitioner from the information that I was getting. So given that you have that professional role in placement, and that's exactly what you want to find out, is how higher education at the level of management and administration and placements, how is that going to have an impact on how critical can you be? To put it in blunt words, how critical can you be, or do you feel that there's going to be a tension in there?
Okay, well, this is something that I've already spoken to the West Midlands Teaching Partnership about at a couple of meetings. I've sort of introduced it at 2 different meetings because they have a number of meetings, for example. So I've already spoken to them about my intentions and my research, just briefly, and I've already got people that are volunteering and to be interviewed. So for me, that was a positive response. In terms of me being critical, and that's why I'd put that extra slide in about being a reflective practitioner as well. So I won't necessarily be interviewing managers. I'll be interviewing people that are responsible for coordinating those placements. Okay, and some of those people were not the people in the meeting, but they're managers. Okay, so but yeah, I do have some form of relationship with some of them. So it is really about me ensuring that, you know, I do keep everything professional. Yes, I may have some thoughts about placements myself and my own expectations, and I may be critical in my mind about something that somebody says, but I have to ensure that that doesn't translate in what somebody's saying or trying to say, because that's their experience. And I'm one that I value people's experience because that's their experience. And when someone has experience, you can't take that away from them. So that's why I've kept emphasizing about raw data, because that's going to be what I'm going to be focusing on and analyzing that, and reserve my thoughts and my reflections until all the data has been gathered, analyzed, and it's drawing its own conclusions before I even start thinking about what I think about it all. Because I think that's what's important. It's about what people are actually saying, and what people are actually doing, and how they articulate what they're doing to me. So yeah, I can understand what you're saying and why you said it. So it is something that I have got on the radar and I'm conscious about. So thank you for bringing that up again, because it's helped me to realise, yes, you must remember not to be critical. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't more than you shouldn't be critical, but for me, it would be the other way around. How are you going to protect yourself? So how are you going to protect your role? So, because one of the joys of being a researcher is that you are able to question, you are able to, to say critical things. So, for instance, just to give you an example,
Yes, yeah.
the problems that I found when I was doing my research, I have these 2 case studies, these 2 organizations. I love them. They are very collaborative. But one of the organizations, they thought they were doing really well. They were achieving very good outcomes on well-being, and they didn't. It was all perceptions. The people thought that their lives were changing, but their lives weren't really changing. And now, when I'm going to be publishing, when I'm going to be writing about it, I need to say this approach wasn't as good as they thought they were. And my problem, I want to be able to say what I found out, but I had that relationship with that organization. I know that those results could have an impact on them and on the approach. They won't be able to explicitly say, oh, we are using this approach because it's amazing. No, it actually is not as amazing as you thought it was. And that is what I was saying, being so involved in the research that you are doing as your professional role. How are you going to manage that whole thing. Like, I really want to give this piece of information, but I know it might have some impact on my research participants or even my own role in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got to be mindful of that. So, I mean, after the interview, you know, I am hoping to sort of review what people have said with them to ensure that that is what they want to have as part of the study, because, you know, they will need to know that eventually, if I decide to go on and publish any of that information, it's going to be out there in the public domain. So and that's the other thing about research. You want people to be real and to share their real experiences. And if they're going to withhold information because they feel it's going to, you know, impact, then how does change happen? How can services be improved, for example? It's not that you want to destroy your relationship, because, you know, that's not what I want. I mean, everything's going to be anonymized. I'm not planning on naming organizations or individuals, but in doing that, there may be things that are said that are still recognizable to some organizations, but it would only be identified that it's them if they're putting their hands up to say, you're talking about me there, you know. So they're actually associating themselves with that specifically. So it's not going to be directed at any one organisation. But yeah, but I'm very conscious of the relationship that we've got now, and I think a real test of that will be, you know, the relationship I still have with people after the interviews, you know.
I will go to Linus. First, I just want to share a little bit of my insight coming from an insider, because you are coming from an insider perspective with your research. And what happens, because when I did the research with Asian women, they sometimes say, for example, I'm asking something and they would say, oh, you know, our culture, or you know what it's like being in the family or being in mother. That's not actually helpful for a researcher. Even though I know that's my view, my perspective, I want to know my participants' perspective.
That's right.
Sometimes that's difficult. That creates an extra barrier for insider researchers, that they are perceived of being known to different things. So yeah, so just be mindful that might happen. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's something else I'm looking at, is the insider. I've come across an article, Insider Outsider Researcher. So I'm actually looking at that as well, because it's not just about the relationship with people in other HCIs, but within our own HCI as well. Because I've already got a relationship with the placement coordinator and the practical and development worker, who are both very much involved in that, then it's also ensuring that that professional boundary remains strong, even more so.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, Linus, I kept you waiting. I just thought I have to share that. Yeah, go.
No, that was a valid point. Thank you very much. No, it's just I found it very inspirational to have a research done from practice related rather than maybe scientific. So I thought that was really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just maybe a question for you is that obviously you'll be approaching it from, as you mentioned, exploratory and explanatory. So you are able to develop an understanding of the experiences of individuals who are managing those placements. So when you reach to that point where you've understood and you are able to explain what is going on, what next?
Okay, so once I've completed my research, the intention is to, you know, to present that back to an audience, in terms of people who are involved in or have an interest in social work placement. For example, the HCIs that have taken part, local authorities, independent organisations, anyone that has got a vested interest that wants to know more about and and understand that, or receive that understanding, I'll be able to talk about that, to talk about those experiences that people have had. So it won't just be talking about it, writing about it, but also, you know, being able to share that with others, really. So it's just taking it one step further, because I think the outcome of the research is not necessarily to come out with any specific answers, because yes, I could talk about the best practice, I can talk about processes that people are doing, but I think the beauty of it, everybody may do things differently, but it all works. So it's recognizing that what people do, but also if there are any best practice coming out of it, you know, HEIs, local authorities can learn from each other in terms of how they move forward in what they do in terms of placements. Yeah, so it's taking it that much further. So once I've got an understanding, once I've understood what people have said through drawing out the themes and the findings and everything, then, you know, it's really about sharing that information with others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina, you raised your hand. I'm sure you have another question.
Yes, I'm back. I'm back with another question. So it was reflecting about what Mahua said in terms of the researching as an insider, and I think you're actually in a very good position, and I might be wrong, but my sense is that in academia there's so much research that is being done. It's not common to have people so deeply involved in something and then doing that research, because most of the people who have professional backgrounds, they do not do academia, and the other way around, like people who've done academia, they might just like went to high school, university, master's, PhD, and that's everything that they've done, and they don't have that expertise, professional expertise. So it's actually really good that you have, so rather than seeing it as a limitation or having to justify or feeling that you need to justify, well, I'm doing this, but I'm going to keep everything anonymized, or I'm going to be, which obviously you have to do, but it's also kind of like taking this as embrace it as actually, I'm going to be able to give a very good, I'm going to be able to make a very good contribution about what happens when someone so invested, so like that it has that role, is undertaking research. So exploring the limitations, not in a way to not thinking about, oh, this is reducing the validity of my project, but I'm actually making a very good contribution to social research, to the methods, to what it involves as a researcher. And there's so much. I remember once in a conference in the British Sociological Association that there was one person talking about the dilemmas that she was facing constantly, because she felt that she had to be moving between insider and an outsider. So I'm like the researcher, but now I'm on the insider. So I have to be cool because I want you to give me information, but now I have to be back into the researcher again. And all of that is super, super interesting.
Yeah.
So do not, well, I mean, obviously you do whatever you kind of, whatever interests you, but if you think there is something in there, go, like, because for the research methods, your methodology, you could really explore the ethical dilemmas and the risks, because I'm sure that there are, and they could be very, very interesting too.
Yeah. I think the good thing is I'm not actually physically doing that process within our team, you know, and that's within our social work team. We've got 2 people who actually physically do that administrative process, the management process. And in terms of developing the placements, organising the placements, all the paperwork that goes with it, they're doing all of that work, and there's people like that in other organisations. So I'm not as immersed as I have been, because I have done that role previously for a short period of time, and it was then where I, you know, my interest came from there, just doing the role for that short period of time and thinking, wow, there's so much going on here, and I'm not even touching the surface, you know. And when I look at what they do now, there's masses of work that they do now, you know, so that's what sparked my interest, really. And that's why, you know, just having that experience myself kind of drove me to wanting, because my when I first started out my research, my PhD, it was going to be around social care placements, because I'd just developed a module around it, and I was thinking, well, why social care placements? And then over time, it's just changed. And I think that was a turning point for me when I was actually in that role as a placement coordinator in a temporary, for a short period of time, for 12 months. I was in that role. And I think during that time, it was when I started questioning, wow, there's so much here. And that's why I sort of changed. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you. That's really interesting discussion. That's what I found. I mean, for the last couple of months as well, I find it really sort of encouraging to see how any presentation sort of start the fantastic research discussion amongst us, and we learn from each other. And I'm sure this discussion, of certainly from your presentation, we learned a little bit more about your research and our sort of intriguing views and question. I'm sure it helps you even if a little bit, but yeah. But thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening.
And huge thanks to Sandra for doing this seminar. So thank you, and thanks, Elena, for conducting this this video and event today. Thank you. Thanks so much. And we will see again in February. In February, we have Warren Smith, our colleague, will talk about his research. Okay.
Thank you all for listening and your comments and your questions. Really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'll end the session there. Thank you.
Thanks.